You can tell a lot about a person based on their favorite mobile visual novel game. Obey Me players downloaded the game as a joke because of how unhinged the ads were, and now you're playing it like it's a full-time job. You log in every day to complete tasks for the small morsels of devil points from missions and energy at lunch and dinner. You also found that simping for these troubled hotties have uncovered a lot of unsolved mental health issues, but you've convinced yourself that it's therapeutic. While you're not entirely wrong, I highly recommend seeing a therapist. I don't hold my breath that you will. I know you've once tried multiple levels just to catch up, and only came back to them once you've spent all your vouchers and points to level up your cards. I'm sure everyone who doesn't play or know of the game agrees with me that you need therapy, but maybe for vastly different reasons. Also, my condolences to the women enjoyers. Nightbringer players are either older Obey Me fans or new to the franchise. Either way, how's reliving the trauma been treating you? At this point, your gremlin energy is either at its peak or just bubbling beneath the surface. You thrive on chaos, and you've directed all your frustrations towards your underleveled cards instead of doing anything productive. Don't lie to me, I know you've spent at least a good few hours trying to full combo Our Destiny on extreme mode and your fingers are begging for mercy. You've also spent more time on event stories than the main story for months on end, and playing catch-up is burning you out just as much, if not even more than your IRL work. You've also cried over not pulling the card you wanted at least once. Again, my condolences to the women enjoyers. Court of Darkness players are some of the most wholesome people you'll meet on the internet, despite the not-so-wholesome first impressions of the main characters. You almost noped out of playing it because of the opening scene, but your morbid curiosity getting the better of you was the best thing that happened. At least that's what you keep telling yourself, despite much of the story and world-building being held together by the daddy issues, depression, and glitter. Story updates? Delayed. The story events? Emotionally draining. The currency system? Predatory. But you're still here like it's the most romantic thing since Pride and Prejudice met a hot topic. If you're into one of the main 5 S ranks, I know for a fact that you need therapy. Too bad you spend too much time and money simping for them. Regardless of what server you play on, you're basically cooked in events if you don't sacrifice your sleep, pay an ungodly amount of real-world money, or grind for 3 months straight. Also, best of luck to your poor wallet in the new gacha system coming to the English server in 2.5 years. And this is the 3rd game in a row where I give my condolences to the women enjoyers. Twisted Wonderland players were definitely Potterheads at one point and have watched at least one of the Monster High movies. There's also a good chance that you're a JoJo fan. Your gremlin energy rivals the Obey Me and Nightbringer players, mainly because a lot of you also play those games. How does it feel to get cheated out of any meaningful romantic interactions from these crackhead Disney villains? The deep storyline that you're enjoying so much is just trauma decorated with crystals and candles. The gacha rates are horrendous, but you've convinced yourself that your home screen character in that particular skin is your mascot for gacha pulls. Keep telling yourself that. And let's not pretend that you don't have an unhealthy obsession with at least one of the dorms. Heart's Labial, you have control issues and you're burned out. Octagonelle, you're manipulative and you've been bullied before. Savannah Claw, you've basically given up on life. Scarabia, you need either an accountant or a therapist. Pomifiore, you need therapy and a stylist. Ignihide, you haven't left your room for anything aside from work, school, or running errands. And Diasomnia, you're into gothic eldritch horrors and probably think Lilia's DILF energy is valid. I feel bad for the Arcana Twilight players. You willingly downloaded a game where every love interest looks like they were summoned from a cursed webtoon manhwa and got emotionally invested. I know for a fact that this isn't your first visual novel game, so I know that getting the princess treatment for the first time was a breath of fresh air to you. Especially compared to Obey Me, Twisted Wonderland, Court of Darkness, Tokyo Debunker, and the Ikemen series. But alas, your time with these emotionally unstable men had come to a halt far too soon, even if this was one of Story Taco's longest-running games. Don't lie to me, you thought Sirius was hot at first, and even if you were turned off, you were hoping for a more satisfying resolution with him especially. The ending was unsatisfying, so I know you were rewriting it with your own self-insert or OC. And I'm not going to comment on how many have put pen to paper though. You're also somehow even more unhinged than the Obey Me fans. Tokyo Debunker fans are some of the biggest masochists under the sun. First you download the game because of how unhinged the ads were, Then you find out you play as someone who's going to die in a year. Most of the cast are completely nuts or incredibly toxic, and you probably have the most predatory gacha and currency system. What's it like to be cock-blocked by the MC herself from having any romantic interaction? What's it like knowing your player character has barely grown a backbone in the several months she's been here? What's it like when the one SSR you wanted doesn't want to come home for you? And what's it like being stuck on the same investigation stage for months on end? You don't love Tokyo Debunker for the game mechanics, you're here for the emotional warfare wrapped in ghost stories. Also, I know at least some of you are rewriting the story for more interactions with the ghouls, while also not entirely blaming the MC for not wanting anything to do with these bitches. Ikemen Vampire players, where do I even start with you? You downloaded a game about romancing historical figures with more unhealed trauma than a 1950s mental hospital patient. The plot is paper thin, just like your patience with how few gems you can get as an F2P. But seeing as you still very much enjoy the game, you've stopped questioning the fact that you're romancing historical figures until you talk to someone IRL. You also stopped questioning the heavy trauma and the dangerously sexy biting scenes that you absolutely would not survive in real life. Ikemen Prince players are built like the Court of Darkness players, except less unhinged, and you've had a gacha system that you cried over for longer than they have. You've got a favorite prince whose route you've memorized line for line like it's scripture. You probably cried at a story where someone finally admitted they loved you, after 21 chapters of brooding, betrayal, and 3 assassination attempts no less, and instead of going to bed, you dropped real money to unlock the premium scene, because you needed closure. Respectfully, your credit card deserves hazard pay. Ikemen Villains players are some of the thirstiest people you'll ever meet. The toxicity levels rival Kishdom, and you're out here romanticizing red flags like it's a national sport. Basically every route is a Victorian man who stepped out of a hot topic saying something along the lines of, "I'm dangerous" or "stay away," and your standards fly out the window. You picked this game because every character looks like they stepped out of a cursed oil painting and said, "Do you want some extra trauma with that?" This game is for the I can fix him ladies. Now if you're wondering, but what if I like all of these? Then congratulations! You've officially unlocked the mentally unstable multimedia consumer achievement. You don't just need therapy, you need a full psychiatric support team, a financial advisor, and an exorcist. Before I end the video, I'd like you to take a moment to listen to Musab Hamuda's situation. His wife Aya Abu Al-Gambaz and 3 daughters Lina, Alma, and Lama all lived peacefully in Gaza until their home got relentlessly bombed. He worked at his father's factory, which also was reduced to rubble. They lost any semblance of work, education, food, water, sanitation. They lost basically everything as they had to flee to the south. They go hungry and thirsty for hours every day just by waiting in long lines for nourishment. They also live in flimsy tents that provide virtually no protection from the heat or the cold. And to top it all off, Musab has an injured shoulder that needs a second operation to treat. And his daughter Lama had a hand surgery, and the lack of protection from the heat or cold is not helping them at all. So if you can donate as little as $5, please do so, as the link to the GoFundMe is in the description box. And if you cannot, I urge you to send it to anyone who you know who can. A small amount is still a small amount closer to the goal of 18,000 euros. Surgery is not cheap, and neither is a new life, so they need as much help as possible. And that concludes the video. Thanks for watching, and sorry if I offended you. I was mainly roasting myself, and if enough of you want it, I will make a video exposing myself as someone who's played these games. Bye bye!